holding by Matonim, that's Lahachzir. Okay, we're holding Vav, page 261. So we said on the first day of Yom Tov, the Mechaber said you shouldn't give the lulav to a child, to a minor, before you yotzei. So the Mishna Berura says, in a chutz la'aretz we keep 2 days, and the second day we keep as a sveika diyoma. Even the second day you shouldn't. So until you yotzei on the second day, you're entering into this problem. So we discussed this. It's a little complicated. So if you have a number of minors, so how do you, and if they reach an age of chinuch, so what do? You can't give them your lulav. So you're stuck, really stuck. If you can't afford to buy them the lulav, you don't buy them a lulav. Otherwise, you have to buy each one. Because we'll see, each one himself is in the same problem, same position. Because if you give it to each one of them, each one can't give it to the other when they have to own it. Okay? And? No, it's the same thing, because each child has to own it. So if child 1 owns it, how does child B own it? Child 2 own it? Can't. No, because they're all adults. If you're adults, we're able to transfer ownership. No, they can't. No, not they can't assume. They don't have the capacity to because they don't have legal intent. Their intent, it has no value. They have to own it, otherwise they're not yotzei, because otherwise it's not proper chinuch. It's not proper chinuch. Chinuch means, as a child, you have to be yotzei as if you'd be an adult. If you be an adult, you have to own it. So that means you have to give them ownership, right? Otherwise, it's never a problem. Give it to the child, only go through the motions, you don't transfer ownership to him. Right? The answer is because chinuch can only be done when you do transfer ownership. What's the basis for chinuch? It's rabbinical. We want you to train your child to accustom to be conditioned to do mitzvahs. It's not enough to teach him information-wise, but when he reaches an age that he's able to do the act, to actualize it, so you're creating a conditioning. In what context do you create the conditioning? As if he'd be an adult to fulfill the mitzvah. As an adult, if you don't own it, are you yotzei the mitzvah? No, but it's not. So if you, because he doesn't own it. But the Torah says to be yotzei. The practice is you have to practice if when you're an adult. As a child, you have to practice as if you would be an adult. Right. So as an adult, if you don't own it, yotzei the mitzvah. No. So as a child, he has to own it. To fulfill it as a child, as if he'd be an adult. That's proper chinuch. Otherwise, it says, as a child, I didn't own it. So as an adult, I don't have to own it. Okay. No, definitely not. You're doing the wrong thing to give it to if you're a third, an adult, another junior. That's the halach of what? Kol Yisrael Ravens Eluzah. I mean, I have to make sure other people should be able. I give it to my own child, somebody else can be yotzei. It's doing the wrong thing. It's not really Kol Yisrael, because the Gemara says in Yisham, the whole concept of Shemei Ka'oneh. Why, if I'm yotzei my mitzvah, could I? That's our Ravens. That's Kol Yisrael Ravens Eluzah. No. What do you do? Time. I have to be busy blowing the shofar for other people. I already was yotzei my mitzvah. I have to be concerned. I have to make sure other people are yotzei their mitzvah. So it's a takeoff of that. Although lulav is a mitzvah shebegufo, I can't take a lulav on behalf of someone else, right? But nevertheless, I'm able to provide a lulav. Am I giving to my child? I'm denying them. You're doing the wrong thing. Yesh mi she'omer shem higia le'onas haputos. If a child reaches the age of putos means 9 or 10 years old. Meaning, although he's still a minor, it's less than bar mitzvah, but he has all the semblances of an adult. He has intelligence, he has understanding, he knows what it means to acquire all this. Mutter, because rabbinically, his acquisition is an acquisition. So the question, the whole discussion over here. So do we say kin rabbanim mahani doraisa? Since rabbinically, we acknowledge his acquisition and his transfer, let's say you send your child to the store to purchase something. Right? And let's say a child has his own money. You gave a child money. He wants to go buy candy in the store. Right? So how does he purchase it in the store? The store owner, how does the money become the store? There's an exchange. But still, the exchange on the exchange, because the buyer is giving his money on behalf of the item. But he's not. He has no intent. It's his money. How does he transfer the money into the domain of the owner of the store, the proprietor? The answer is it's rabbinical. It's a rabbinic transfer. So the question is, a rabbinic transfer to fulfill a mitzvah d'oraisa, is that sufficient? Right? Over there, you're not stealing. Because the Chazal said, based on hefker bez nefker, we acknowledge the transfer. So the one who takes the money from the child is not stealing from the child. Although it's the asset of the child, he's permitted to take it. But but a mitzvah d'oraisa, where the Torah has to acknowledge it, it's not a rabbinic mechanism. Maybe it's not enough. But Yesh Omrim, no, even for a d'oraisa, it's enough. That if he reached the age of putas, which is 9 or 10 years old, mutter. Okay, it's a question. He says 6 or 7. Alamed Gimel, 1 second. Prima go to my Mordechai. See, 6. Because 6 or 7 already, that's the halacha in chinuch, or Talmud Torah. You know, when you start teaching a child Torah, it's a question if he's chorif, if he's healthy, he's very, he's precocious, you teach him at 5. Otherwise, when you start teaching Torah, when he's 6 years old, right? Let's see the Mishna Berura. Putos hainu kimen sheishu ben shevi, cites the Prima Godim, 6 or 7 years old. Muter matanosa matona bidivrei sofrim. Here, rabbinically, his gift is recognized as a gift. I am ber alocha. Let's see the ber alocha. Lo yitnenu. You should not give it to a child in any circumstance. Das Rishonu Huloshin Rambam. He says the first position, the Mechaber, is the position of Rambam. I'm Berek Abayis, Shekosev Dibstam, Mashma, Afil Gil, Onas Aputos, Gamken, and Litino. He says from the Rambam, it seems the Berek Abayis is the Rama. It's the Berek Abayis. No, it's the Ra'o. Berek Abayis. Vatam the Rambam, Mishitoso, Per Koftes, Milchus, Mechiro, the Hecho de Das, Acheres Magdelo, Uzochem in Torah. Remember we mentioned Machlokas, Rashi, and Tosos. If a minor acquires something, and the basis for the acquisition is somebody transfers it to him, is that acquisition a Torah acquisition or rabbinic acquisition? Meaning everybody agrees, if a minor finds an ownerless object, and he picks it up, he doesn't acquire it. Does not acquire it. Why? Because to acquire you need intent. No. It's no different than sand. What? No. I'm differentiating. If it's an ownerless object, everybody agrees it's rabbinic. What about if somebody gifts something to the minor and the minor does an act of acquisition? Does an act. Not appears. He does an act of acquisition. What appears? He does an act of acquisition. Again, so possible. Okay, so what's meaning like this? What you need 2 elements for acquisition. You need the act of acquisition, and you need intent. You see something because I intend to acquire it. So what you intend, you have to actually physically take possession, right? If you take a person is not even aware something falls into he takes something's in his hand. He doesn't realize it's in his hand. You don't acquire it. You have to have intent to acquire it. So you need two things, 2 elements. Act and intent. A child has 1. He has the act, he can do the physical action, but he's lacking in intent. Intent means he picks it up. But the Torah doesn't recognize his intent. Until a child is bar mitzvah, Torah doesn't value that intent. He could be Einstein at the age of 6 years old. It's irrelevant. Till he's bar mitzvah, it has no value in terms of acquisition. Okay? Wait a second. So now you give a child a gift, you put something in his hand. So the gifter, his intent, so that's the question. In conjunction with the act of the child, do we join the 2 together? Even though it's not the child. But there's somebody who wants to transfer it into his domain. So Tosas Shita and the Rambam's position is that you're able to combine the intent of the gifter with the act of the receiver. So therefore, even though the minder doesn't have intent, it's considered a valid act of acquisition to become his.
And that's rabbinic?
No, that's Doraisa. That's Tosas, that's Rashi. We have Tosas and Kedushin says the same thing. Rashi Shita is no. That the acquirer has to have the intent. Somebody else's intent cannot make it yours. Therefore, when a child reaches an age where he has a degree or you give something to the child, it's only rabbinical. Since it has a semblance of acquisition, because you have an intent of the gifter, rabbinically, we see it as if it's his. But factually, it's not his. On a Torah level, it's not his. So he's saying, going to Rambam, it's irrelevant how old the child is. And if the child is not bar mitzvah, even though he wants it Rambam's l'shitasa. Why? Because if you gift it to the child, it becomes the child's on a Torah level. Of course, the intent of the gifter, in conjunction with the act of the child, now the child is on the Torah level. So now how does the child now release it from his acquisition? You need intent. He has no intent. Because the acquirer can only do the act, but you need the intent of the transfer. There's no intent. But he said, but if you hold that initially, it never became the child's on the Torah level. It's only rabbinically his. So just as rabbinically it became his, rabbinically it can be transferred out of his domain. No. Tosis, it's Doraisa, Rashi, it's rabbinic. So according to Rashi, so they said at the age of 9, rabbinically you could transfer. So just as rabbinically you acquired, rabbinically you could transfer. But if initially you acquired on the Torah level, and only rabbinically you transfer, you need more than a rabbinic transfer. You need a Torah transfer. Child can't make a Torah transfer until he's an adult.
Even if the intent of the
No, the Rambam holds he could, but now the child, the intent of the child has no value. So that right? Everybody agrees that the intent of the child is nothing. So if the child now gives it back to the adult is only doing an act of acquisition. His intent is not enough to acquire, because factually it belongs to the child. So whenever somebody transfers something, the intent of the transferer, his intent is to give it to the other person. But it's lacking, because the one who owns it is a child. So you're lacking intent on the child side.
The intent of the parent giving it.
That has value, according to Rambam.
His intent of giving it is only to receive it back.
No, so then the child... Yeah, but then the child's never Yotzei. So what did you accomplish? If we say Chinuch means he has to be Yotzei as if it's his. So if that's the case, you never gave it to him. It was preconditioned, so he was never acquired it. So you're wasting your time here. No, it's right. The second opinion holds that initially, the child is not acquired on the Torah level. It's only rabbinical. So therefore, when he's the age of Putos, rabbinically, he has the ability to transfer. According to Rashi. Exactly. That's what he's saying. Okay, let's not get complicated with it, let's talk about existing people. Okay? You can talk about a 3-year-old. 3-year-old's like an Uber. You don't have to go to an Uber. You don't have to go to an unborn fetus. We don't have to talk about the extreme. We're talking Putas is a child of 6 or 7 or 9 or 10. He has intelligence, but it's not halachic intelligence. That's what we're talking about over here, okay?
In case of an adult, which comes first, the intent or the acquisition?
You need both simultaneous.
Simultaneously.
Definitely.
So your example of something falls into your hand,
And you're not aware.
and you're not aware. But
No.
then you say, okay, that looks good. I intended to have something.
No, wait. But is it still in your hand?
Yeah.
So you acquire it. Because now, simultaneously, it's in your hand and you intend to acquire it.
But it's not simultaneous.
But let's say he was going to say he wasn't aware, then it fell out of his hand. And now he says, if I want what I had in my hand previously. It's meaningless. No, King Chotzer is something else. King Chotzer that's the equivalent of awareness. Because a person's mindset is whatever is in my Chotzer, whatever falls into my Chotzer, I want my Chotzer, my domain to acquire for me. That's the reason why it acquires. Okay? So it's Gemara. That's the Gemara. First, it depends how old the child is. If the child's is 6 or 7, so it's called rabbinic stealing. You're stealing from the child rabbinically. No, it's not. It's a machlokas in the Gemara. No, 6 or 7 you can. Less than 6 or 7, it's a machlokas in the Gemara whether you could or not, because it's darki shalom. For darki shalom, you take your child picks up something, somebody else takes it away from the child. Creates it could be a serious fracas between the father and the one who you took my child's thing. By factually, your child didn't acquire it, and even on a rabbinic level, right? Again, then it doesn't fit the pattern. It doesn't fit the pattern of acquisition. You need das because he doesn't even he has no das. No, he has intelligence. It's not recognized. So therefore, rabbinically, we give it value. Right? Like there's an expression in Yiddish, "Yehud nishkin seichel." Okay? Some people, even they're 60 years old, say "Yehud nishkin seichel." Okay?
If the child demonstrates das, base 10, he demonstrates das once. Whatever the issue is now presumed that he has das.
Every child at the age of 6 or 7, even though we haven't given an IQ test, he has a certain sense of right and wrong at the age of 6 or 7. He grasps right values. That's all you need. More or less, it doesn't make a difference. Let's say a child at 6, 7, in fact, he's backward. So he's 3 years old. Of course, then it's nothing. It's like an adult being a shoter, right? It doesn't mean anything. On a Torah level. His das, his acquisition could be a doraisa if somebody transfers it to him. There's a question, Tosas it's an argument. Tosas Shita throughout Shas is das aches makne yikon on a Torah level. You acquire on a Torah level because you have the intent of Yad. But there's a Tosas in the beginning of Ben Mora, which we once studied, even though we're learning Chelik now. With Tosas, that's from Moshe's made that comment. That Tosas says over there, because it speaks about it, Ben Mora, a child, how could he acquire? So one Tosas, no, he steals it. It's not an acquisition, right? So Tosas says, how could you steal from a child, right? You steal from a child through inheritance. He inherited something, and then you take it. But that would be the only case where something belongs to a child on a Torah level. If you're not of the opinion, das aches makne is a Torah acquisition. It's only rabbinical. So on a Torah level, how could a child own anything? The answer is, where's an heir? Because if a person's an heir, the Torah puts it into his domain. It has nothing to do with the person's acquisition.
So if the child steals something and then changes that item, does it belong to the child?
No, doesn't. He never, because his act of stealing is not an act of stealing. It's no different than the wind blew it. If the wind would blow it from one domain to another.
He can't steal as a provision for the child.
That's why a child has no liability. And therefore it's altered, it's nothing. It means nothing. I mean, he's damaged. He's a damager. Right? That's all he is. Therefore the Mishnah says in the Chovil, a child is pigios and ra. You don't want a child to cross that line because there's no liability. You have no claim against him. You can't do anything to the child. Right? The parents, what are you going to do? The parents are not responsible for the child's misbehavior. So it's pigios and ra. You have to keep a child away from you. Because if he causes damage or anything, you have no recourse against him. To be continued.
So if a child steals, is he responsible for stealing?
No. There's a question, when he becomes an adult, does he have to make amends for what he did as a child? So there's a proof from the Moran in Bava Kama that he has to. He has to make restitution. But it's not as a chiyuv, not as an obligation, just tshuva wise. As an adult, you do tshuva for the wrong that you did, but the person as a child didn't keep Shabbos, nothing. Stealing or damaging, that he has to do tshuva and he has to make restitution. Only because bidei shamayim, not the court cannot prosecute him, enforce it. Okay. He has no slate. Starts at zero, right? Clean slate.